Hello, and welcome back to Rabbit Troop Sucks. Today, we will be discussing 1984's Trancers. And, Mike and I have noted numerous times that we're terrible at introducing ourselves. As always, I am Paul, and next to me is Mike. And today, we will have an extra special guest, Rico, who is my father. And he will be joining us on our discussion of Trancers from 1984. So, Dad, thanks for joining us. And Mike flew back in from New York on some business today. So, Mike, thanks for joining us as well.
I'm ready. I'm all hopped up on goofballs.
Yeah, so earlier today, a couple hours ago, all together, we watched this movie, Trancers. And I have never seen this. I have never even heard of this until maybe a few weeks ago that I put it on a saved list of movies. It is a science fiction movie, and oftentimes we use different summaries from IMDb or Amazon or whatever. I'm going to use the Peacock summary because that really helped me out. And it's a trooper from 2247 Angel City goes back in time to 1985 Los Angeles to stop a zombie mystic out to change history. So
yeah. It's also funny to me that this movie is on Peacock.
Yeah, so a lot of times we don't talk about these things, and if anyone's joined us for the first time, we're like, don't talk about it. Don't talk about it until we record. And Dad, it seems you're under the impression, which I try to keep hush-hush, that Mike and I found out a night ago, that there are multiple parts to the Trancers franchise. Do you know how many parts there are?
6.
Yeah, there are 6 parts to Trancers. 6.
And one might be a Western?
You guys should talk about this. I just want to note a couple of the titles of Trancers because it is crazy. And it spawns until early 2000s, I think.
Yeah.
Trancer 6 is 2002.
Great.
Trancers 4, Jack of Swords. Trancers 5, Sudden Death, that has a poster of the main character on a horse and a handgun with a woman with a sword. And then I'm showing my dad the picture of this Trancers movie right here. Yeah.
That's the one that I am looking forward to the most.
Yeah. So, yeah. I don't even know where to begin with Trancers.
No one knows where to begin with Trancers. So the description talks about a wizard,
Yeah, zombie mystic.
We'll get to that, but it's not. None of that's really explained. Mm-hmm. He's just a guy who can maybe possess people.
He trances them.
And
then you become a trancer.
But for what end and why, we don't. Because he just wants to.
We also find out not everyone could be tranced. Only the weak-minded.
Only the squids.
Yeah, only the squids could do this. Before we go into maybe some scene by scene, I want to note that this movie came out in 1984, and its overall build as a sci-fi film, and it's kind of it's at the core, it's a sci-fi film, but the special effects aren't really going to blow you away. Again, this is 1984, and I wanted to write off to the side that we're dealing with 1983 Return of the Jedi and 1982 Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. This is all in existence, and this screams to me, these are the reasons I've never heard of Trancers. That sounds like Trancers. I'd rather watch Blade Runner or Return of the Jedi or anything with a budget, which Trancers does not have. I also saw the director later goes on to direct a movie that we're planning to do with one of our friends, if Mike did not know that. And then he later goes into the Evil Bong series, which is I've never seen any of these, but there's several. It is a marijuana bong that's possessed by a demon and kills people.
Marijuana bong, yeah.
I've never seen this, but that is what the director has gone on to do.
Not the other sorts.
Yeah, Dad, and those are recent. Like that's in the last 10 years. This is what this guy's doing. I guess I'll just start off with wait, how did you guys like it? Let's just open with that.
I thought the movie was fun.
I also thought it was fun. I'm willing to see sequels.
Yeah, I suspect the sequels might not be quite as well done. I liked Helen Hunt. That was a nice treat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Helen Hunt, I imagine, is about 20 years old when she filmed it, maybe 21 when this came out. Yeah, that was cool. And there's some other notable people. What is Tim's last name? Thomerson?
Tim Timerson.
Oh, Tim
Thomerson.
Yeah, Tim Thomerson.
Yeah.
I've seen him before, but I wouldn't be like, yes, the lead of Trancers.
Well, I actually saw 2 movies that had him in it over the past couple weeks. My girlfriend and I watched Cherry 2000, and he is in that. And then just randomly, I watched a movie that you and I have seen that I love, Fallen Tears.
Oh, yeah. My dad's seen Volunteers
Yeah.
with John Candy and Tom Hanks.
Oh,
Where they
He
join the
comes
Peace
in as
Corps.
the military
He's
expert.
the military guy, yeah.
Who is lying to them.
Correct.
He's a double crosser.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, Mike. I did not put that
Yeah,
together
so
until
when
now.
you suggested this, I was like, this is the trifecta for me.
Tim Thomerson is a part of
Thomerson.
the fixture in your life now.
Yeah, he is. He is.
Dad, how did you like Trancers?
I thought it was a good movie, considering when it was made, and I thought it could be a really good movie. I think they started out with a very good idea. I just, in my opinion, I think there's certain requirements to making a good movie, and one of the requirements is starting with an excellent script. And I think they had a very good idea here. I think that I also believe that the essence of a good movie, besides a good script, is of course good direction, good acting, and of course good financing. And I think this movie, being what I guess you guys would call a B movie, doesn't get the financing that the top echelon movies get. I think had there been more money available, I think they could have developed this movie into something special, because the idea of time travel and whatnot, we all know, we've seen many movies related to time travel, but I think they had a good idea here. I think that although some of it was cheesy, but some of it acting was pretty good. You mentioned Helen Hunt. I had no idea she was going to be in this movie. She looks like she's 19, 20 years old, and of course she went on to be a high tier star in her own right. So I thought that the special effects, okay. Again, you have to have money to pour in a movie to get the great special effects that we're all used to now. But again, this movie came out in '84, and
Well, I would argue time and time again, so even though these 80s special effects are somewhat cheesy, I will go on record just to speak a little for my dad. My dad absolutely hates green screen, and I'm not far removed,
Yeah.
nor is Mike with him.
Yeah, you're right.
And so going back to some of these 80s special effects, yeah, they're kind of cartoony. Like if someone's like wondering what they look like, imagine in the Ghostbusters when they're shooting out, the proton, like that kind of cartoony proton lasers. That's what you see. But Dad, I would take that over any of the green screen in modern times.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
I could deal
the
with
green-
a fake laser
yeah.
rather than a fake city as a backdrop.
Yeah. To me, a green screen is just a way to get around good production. You mentioned the actor, Thomerson. I have never seen him before. Maybe I have, but I didn't recognize him. And I was wondering whatever became of this guy. What was his future like after this movie?
Well, not to spoil too much, and we haven't watched these, he is in Trancers 1 through 5,
Yeah.
but not 6.
Oh.
And we saw the premise of 6 is this character goes back in time to warp himself in his daughter's body, so the daughter is the lead, and that actor is not in part 6.
Well, that's very interesting.
I think Tim Thomerson had enough of Trancers, maybe.
Well, let me ask you fellas, and by the way, thanks for having me as a guest tonight.
Of course.
I could tell your audience we're not smoking cigars, but it would be nice if we had one. But
Next time.
other than that, yeah, next time. What about the director-producer? What do we know about him?
That's what I said. The director, he went on to do a movie that I'll reveal later. We could talk about it
okay.
off because we might do it. But then he did all these evil bong movies. And then I saw he's the producer of some horror movies, Puppet Master, which is pretty notable. But that's another series that, I don't know how many Puppet Masters there are, but I think it's thought of that the first couple are scary and fun, and then it becomes super schlocky when you get into like Puppet Master 8 or whatever they have like 40 years later, that is just like a money grab.
So I'm looking at IMDb right now, and it's worth bringing up.
Charles Band is the director.
Yeah.
Correct. Tim Thomerson is in Evil Bong
Loves the director.
as Jack Deth.
Are you serious?
I am. Jack Deth is the character that he plays in this movie.
Really? So
Yeah.
there's a crossover in this world?
It seems like there might be a crossover.
Now I'm wondering if it's a weird cameo, is it like a 2-minute thing, or is he an actual character? Where is he billed on it?
Like eighth.
Yeah, there's some weird cameo, but I'm down.
Yeah,
Now I want to watch
100%.
Evil Bong. I need to know the whole Jack Deth story, start to finish. Yeah. So I mean, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say he played an interesting character. It was somewhat of a noir throwback, his role. Little heavy-handed, but enjoyable. And I thought he came across very well. Again, he's working with a script and on a limited budget, and coupling up with Helen Hunt was kind of interesting to me because there was an age disparity there. But who cares, right? It's a fun movie, and I think they came off pretty well. What they had to work with, so I was entertained.
I'm not surprised my dad likes that and has those notes too. And as Mike and I have talked for many years watching all these kinds of films, I think I always gravitate towards two kind of films, and that's why I said I'm not surprised my dad is saying this. I know for one genre of film that my dad and I absolutely love is, what if you're basically the last person on Earth? What do you do? Or what if you're like the last few? I know we've always talked about that. How do you survive? What do you do? How do you fend off boredom? What do you just do for food? Like so many things. And I think a second one, and all three of us have watched movies, so Mike and my dad, where the lead just is some kind of rogue. I don't want to do this. It's the unwilling person to be like, I know right from wrong, but I'm going to play by my own rules. No one can tell me this. Like, the hell with the etiquette, to hell with the code. Like, I know what's right, and I'm going to play by my own rules. And that's essentially what happens. So to jump right into this film, we open up that there's some kind of future cafe that we see. And as my dad has already noted, the limited budget is very clear when the future car rolls up. Again, this is 2247, and this looks like a 1975 cab that was painted silver with some kind of like exhaust pipes.
It's a car with hoses.
Yeah, it's like someone saw a really quick picture of the DeLorean in Back to the Future 2 with their time machine jump forward devices, and they're like, that's the future. We're going to use this crap model. And we get our lead character, Tim Thomerson, as Jack Deth. And although I'm laughing at it, there's a lot of things I laugh at, like, why didn't you do this? Why don't you do that? That every time I thought that, this movie actually addresses it, including his name, that this guy's name is Jack Deth. We don't know much about him, but he walks into this cafe, and, he's like, hey, first he's smoking. We note this in 2247, you just walk in everywhere.
Still smoking.
Yeah, smoking's fine. And this guy's chain smoking throughout the entirety of the film, past, future.
And
later.
carrying matches.
Yes.
Striking
We
matches.
haven't figured out a better way to do this.
Right?
He will light a match off of any surface
Yes.
in this movie.
Yeah.
Also, just a quick backtrack. You mentioned Blade Runner. The guy that designed the car, his shitty future car, was the guy that did the Blade Runner cars.
Was he fired from Blade Runner and then did this?
I don't know.
He did a wonderful job on Blade Runner.
He did, and he dropped the ball here. Also, did you see the name of the diner?
No.
It was Mom's Number 3.
Really?
Yeah, so shout out here in Denver, Sam's Number 3.
Hey, hey, everyone. My dad is visiting.
I know a perennial favorite for everyone in this room.
Yeah, and anything you'd like to say about your experience with Sam's Number 3 recently?
Oh, absolutely. I had their green chili. They provide a fabulous dish, tasty, tangy, unique, and they provide a delicious tortilla to go with it. and it's very filling. And if you're ever in town, you got to go. You got to go there.
Have you been on this trip?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I went yesterday.
He went to the Glendale one.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, it's really good. It's a go-to place as far as I'm concerned.
Totally bang
Yeah.
for your buck too. Mike and I used to go there almost every Saturday or Sunday
Really?
for years. I would default to a breakfast burrito. The breakfast burrito, I'm not even joking, is almost as big as my forearm. I would have to take half of it home.
Believe it or not, listeners, they're not paying us for
Yeah.
this. This is just
No.
Sam's 3 is just awesome.
It
Yeah.
is, yeah. So, but also sponsorship opportunities.
Yeah, Sam's. If
Sam's
you ever,
number 3.
You could just pay us in food, Sam's. My dad would gladly
Oh,
fly on
I'd
back.
go for that in a second.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get to this future cafe, and we don't know too much, but this Jack Deth character in his sweet duster that
With
he...
like huge like talking heads shoulder pads.
Oh yeah. So it's all 80s, even in the 300
Right.
years later, it's still the 80s. He comes in and he's talking to the woman,
The waitress,
the man
behind the counter.
yeah, manning the counter, and he says, I want some coffee," and she's like, "The real stuff, that's gonna cost you." He's like, "I've earned it. I've been tracking this guy down." And he opens with this narrative. As he's walking in the cafe, we hear this overdub narrative that basically never comes back. It's like the one time
Right.
there's an overdub narrative and someone's probably like, "Cut it. That's not working," but it's too late. And he's talking about like, I've been following this guy Whistler, and I was on some kind of other planet or colony on a planet, and I ended him, but not his reign. And there's these zombie-like people that are able to trance you, that put you in a state of between life and death, and I'm trying to stop this, but he's gonna he's gonna spend some dough on a cup of joe, and he gets into this diner, and there's a guy sitting there, and he's like, "Hey, I need to see your ID." He doesn't believe anyone's not a trancer, and he puts some weird future handcuff on him, and it scans him, and it's like, "All clear," and he's like, "Okay, sorry, buddy, I guess you're not a trancer." But surprise, the waitress is, and just demon hops over the counter. Even my dad was laughing because it looked like someone threw a mannequin just like with one hand over the counter. He's like, This is one of my favorite movies in the movie, and I know it's really early on, but this guy, he was put through the Inquisition, like, "I'm going to put this handcuff on you." This woman attacks now Jack Deth. He pulls out like a handgun laser gun, and the guy holds Jack Deth back, and he's like, "What are you doing, goddammit? It's a trancer. Help me." And the guy's first move is he just runs right
He just
out
lets
of
him go and books it. Yeah, he's out of there.
And then he signals some kind of laser beam as he's leaving. There's like a beacon beam in the parking lot.
I didn't know what that was.
I think that was
it was like the call box.
Yeah,
It was a call box.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. And then and you guys could talk about how then a fight ensues between the waitress and Jack Deth, which I thought was hilarious.
By the way, Jack Deth, the last name is spelled Dethth.
Yeah,
we don't want to make it. We don't
No
want to make
way.
it too morbid.
Right. I like the fight though because he just cold cocks this woman across the counter.
Oh, she's battling.
Yeah, and she throws soup at him. That's like
right.
her.
That would have taken. She takes
A cauldron of
Yeah, she
soup.
takes a 10-gallon pot of hot soup and just throws it on his back.
Yeah.
Maybe that future duster is protected.
By the way, his gun was in that pot.
Yes.
When she attacked him, the gun went flying out of his hands into the pot.
Oh, is that why he couldn't pick it up? Because it was hot?
and then it was hot.
Okay, because
Yeah,
I saw him
yeah.
try to pick
Right,
it
it
up.
was
I
hot.
didn't pick up
Yeah,
on that.
Yeah.
Also, even though we mentioned kind of zombies, they're not. There's more like psychic zombies because Jack Deth gets bit by this woman and there's no repercussions. I thought like maybe he would then have a timeline. You were bit by a zombie. You have 3 days to solve this. You're going to turn. Nope. They even have antidotes. Like it does whatever. Like he had antidotes. Other people have antidotes, which doesn't make sense later on. But they do have antidotes.
I still don't fully understand what the Trancer's purpose was in the canon of this movie.
Yeah, basically he is able to take down the waitress, and he goes outside and the cop cavalry comes. I guess the beam did its job, the call box, and a bunch of cops are there, and the cops are led by the actor Art LaFleur. The character's named McNulty. I have seen this character in 2 areas. One, he is in Field of Dreams as one of the baseball players, and there is another person in Field of Dreams in this film. And I most know him as he is Babe Ruth in The Sandlot. He has a cameo, and he comes back, and he comes through a dream to tell one of the lead characters, like, "You got to pickle the beast." And I could tell his face right away. But he's telling Jack Deth, you got to come in. And Jack Deth is highlighting, I don't like to play by the books. He's like, hey, you're given your assignments, you do the assignments, or you could just walk. So big man takes his future bad shield, throws it to the ground, and leaves. And McNulty and his cop crew are not pleased by this whatsoever.
No, McNulty's given him the, like, if it weren't for you being such a damn good cop, he's giving him that talk.
Yeah.
And then after he drives off, when he quits, he turns to one of the other cops. He's like, he was a damn good cop.
He's the best.
But then we find out that a Trancer killed his wife.
Yeah.
And that was the turning point for him going rogue.
And we found out a little more about that later, which it seems like it was his fault.
Was completely his fault,
the wife's death could have probably been avoided on many different levels, and we don't see a flashback. It's just kind of described a little later.
Well, he mentioned that he used his wife as bait to catch the Trancers.
Yeah, he was like, I just used my wife as bait. It wasn't a big deal. It went wrong. She's dead now.
Yeah.
Great.
Also, I wanted to note, and I don't know if this would hit with my dad, not McNulty, but all of like the side police soldiers or whatever, the troopers or what they're called, they look like they're wearing 1985 laser tag outfits. They have like this very 80s gray vest, gray helmets. I mean, they're wearing pieces of plastic and felt. It's abundantly clear.
Right, but McNulty's just wearing like a suit.
Yeah, he's wearing a suit, and then Death has that sweet duster.
Yeah.
So then we get a transition that it took me a second to figure out what was happening. You see a city in the sea.
Right. This was the only time that I really thought they could have done better with the effects.
Oh, yeah.
This is where that budget, because it was like a painting of LA in the ocean.
Yeah, this was someone's feeble attempt at Planet of the Apes with,
It did look like
that. With the Statue of Liberty in the background, but Mike's totally right. It looked like someone painted a couple buildings half submerged in the sea, and we see Jack Deth walking out of it because in his free time, he waterworlds this. If you remember Waterworld with Kevin Costner, he is going into the sea to find forgotten artifacts of the past, like the America that we once knew, like this forgotten California.
But he just pulls up a bag of like old hubcaps for some reason.
And there's a sign that's on the beach that this is Lost Angeles.
Yeah.
So, wow.
It was submerged along the way.
And we're also hearing some really weird music. It reminded me of 80s Tangerine Dream.
I like the music in this movie a lot.
I liked it then, but then later, like, that kind of disappears. I wish it was a little more consistent. But yeah, it's kind of like early, like, synthesized Tangerine Dream. And McNulty approaches him. So it's kind of funny that he's pulling out this bag on the beach, and all of a sudden he looks up, like, out of surprise, like, McNulty's there. Okay, you would have seen McNulty and the two other troopers walking probably half a mile up the beach this whole time, but he's like, like I'm just going through them, and McNulty highlights that he's been summoned by the council, and this is the highest honor that you could have, and this is all being told to McNulty as he's wearing what looks like a wetsuit and a motorcycle helmet.
Yeah, he's got like a motorcycle helmet. There's a hose that goes to just nothing. I don't know. Not the scuba we're used to.
And this movie is rated PG-13, and this is one of, I think, 4 to 5 instances F this or F-em was used. It was so 80s were a different time. Because Mike and I were talking, I think you're in a PG-13 movie now, I think you're only allowed maybe at most 2 instances.
Well, I think this movie might have been rated PG-13 retroactively, because this would have been before that rating, wouldn't it? Didn't PG-13 come?
Yeah,
like
PG-13 came with Temple of Doom and Gremlins, so like right in that area. So yeah.
So they might have just Peacock gave it a PG-13.
Yeah, totally.
This isn't official. Why did? Oh yeah. McNulty's like, yeah, they need you. Don't you need anybody? I don't remember exactly what he says, but he's like, yeah, fuck him.
Yeah, he's just super happy being on the beach and doing whatever. But
then he just changes his mind right away, and I don't.
There was no discussion. I literally write hard cut. Now they're just at the council.
Yeah.
Well, you brought up an idea earlier that he's kind of a roguish, anti-establishment, but effective cop. But I think possibly his diving into the Lost City and bringing up these artifacts may be considered kind of plundering, because he threw down his badge. He wasn't working. What was he really going to do with these artifacts? Put them in his office, or was he going to make money off it?
So I put my hubcaps.
Big hubcap.
No,
market.
okay, right.
Yeah, I don't know. He had a street sign as well that he was peeling barnacles off of.
Yeah, right. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
So we get to the council, and they highlight that they need his help. And essentially what they're noting, and I'm trying to pull up the actors, is there was 3 members on a council, but one of the members is dead. And now 2 members exist. It's Richard Hurd and I think it's Anne Seymour. Anne Seymour was also in Field of Dreams. I totally remember her role, if anyone's ever watched it, that they're going to investigate Moonlight Graham, who was a baseball player and became a doctor. And I am elongating this because it's such a nice moment in the movie that they approach this librarian and they ask her. She is the newspaper reporter of the town, and they say, like, do you know Moonlight Graham, etc. And I always remember this. And she's like, oh, let me show you. And they basically pull up this amazing obituary, and it's James Earl Jones's character who's like, wow, you really wrote this well. And he because he's an author himself, and notes that this woman must have wrote it. And she's like, yeah. And then I thought that was cool because I really recognized her face and her voice. And then it's Richard Hurd, who I've seen in a couple other things. And these are the 2 chairmen. They say, well, the third one's dead. Like, this guy that you thought was dead, Whistler, he basically is able to go back in time, and he's killing our ancestors, so we never exist. So he's going to make this weird psychic zombie society, and we need you to go back. We have who our contact ancestors are. You need to go find these people. You need to stop this guy. He's not super into it, but basically agrees to do all of these things.
Yeah, he doesn't really... One, time travel up until this point was not discussed in this movie.
It's just like really could warp your consciousness back.
Well, I mean, that's they seem to change their mind about that a little bit. But he's like... They're explaining this to him. He's like, Whistler, no. They're like, we can prove it. And then they have like the hologram of him.
No, so oh wait, is it a hologram?
Yeah,
or
it's
is
a
it
hologram.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, of Whistler, who is... He's dressed up like a waiter from Rodizio for some reason, like a Brazilian. He's got like a sash and a blouse.
That's the future.
Right, yeah.
That's the future.
Yeah, and it is still not explained how he is able to entrance.
Oh yeah, I don't
No,
think
like none of that is described.
He's got some mystic power.
Power,
that
yeah.
Yeah,
He's
and
got
never
power.
did
Right,
describe.
never explained.
Never explained.
And then, but he goes on like this hologram has like 5 minutes of exposition explaining exactly what he's doing.
I can't remember the last words of the hologram, but I love that he repeats the last line as something like, "You will be doomed. You will be doomed."
Yeah,
Like purposely.
No, he said adieu.
Is that what he said?
Adieu, yeah. He gives
His
him
last word was adieu.
But doesn't he say it twice?
Yes.
He does.
Yeah, like
Adieu.
adieu.
So the whole idea was he's in a power grab. He wants to be in control, like many other movies. It's a fight against the good and evil, and the council is the good, and he wants to undermine them, eliminate them, and put himself in power.
And the way you could do it is, which is not fully fleshed out, is you are able to use some kind of future drug to sedate yourself, and your consciousness will warp back into time, and you and your consciousness will possess a body of that time. So like, we're going to send you back to early mid-'80s. You will take over this other person. That person will be unaware of it. A big thing that we asked is, and my dad asked, well, what happens to the consciousness of that person you're taking over? Absolutely unknown and never explained. Who the hell knows? If you're the main guy, spoiler, you just wake up to have sex with people repeatedly, and then your body is warped back. And that is something that does happen.
That is correct. But they can time travel objects because they send them like a care package with like a gun and some treats.
And P.S. why they're not doing this repeatedly and every 5 minutes, never explained.
Well, also, I mean, I guess I don't understand why they wouldn't just time travel his person.
I also don't understand why they don't time travel his laser gun, because this jumps to Deth saying, okay, I'll do it, I'll go under, and we meet the James Bond Q of this movie, who's like, I'm going to set you up with some gadgets. And it's like, whoa, you can't take your laser gun because that's not, what they're using. And my thought is, who the hell cares?
Right.
Like, are you shooting this laser everywhere? I want the laser gun. So she gives him a gun that does nothing special, but has 2 antidotes, one for him, to get him back into time, the present where he is presently. So when he's in the past, he can come back. And the same for Whistler, who he's tracking down.
Right. It's just like 2 vials in a secret compartment.
Right, so-
it's not like a fancy.
And the handle of the gun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that
exactly.
could have been better. And also a watch that it highlights, it's the longest second. So when you hit a button on this watch, 1 second becomes 10, only for you, and then the watch is broken and you can't use
10
it.
seconds, or in the context of this movie,
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
10 minutes?
Yeah. But yeah, so he can't bring his laser gun, but he can bring the magic watch from the future. That is totally okay. Also, when they're explaining this to him, they're in like the future time travel room, and we see the body of Whistler.
That's right.
Because they found it. Like his conscious is in the past in some bozo, but his body is just laying there, and Death is like, let's just kill him right now.
It just shoots it right there. Boom.
Right, and they're like, no, we can't.
But that wasn't the council's.
That wasn't, no. They're like, we want him
That
to.
wasn't their plan.
You got to bring him back. He's going to
Wild
stand
card
trial.
trial,
And he's
right.
like, nope. And he just,
Yeah,
he
blows
just
him
blasts
away.
him. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and they're like, yeah, okay, well, what's done is done. No one seems to be upset by this.
And so, yeah, very quickly, he warps back. And what we soon learn as an audience is I believe like July. He says something. It's like the summer, I think July, when he leaves 22, whatever. And now he's in the early mid 80s near Christmas. And I believe it's Christmas Eve when he warps in, or Christmas
Yeah,
Day
I think it
itself.
was Christmas Eve.
And he wakes up and he is shaving. Well, he wakes in his consciousness. So he's in a new body thinking, what the hell? He's looking in the mirror. And he looks the same. I assume that that's what we're supposed to see, that this actor's playing this, but it's supposed to look like a different person. But they do know later, like, this is an older gentleman.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, he doesn't have this. He had a big scar on his face that's not there in the past.
And so, yeah, he wakes up. He's got shaving cream all over his face. He's wearing pants. You see Helen Hunt, which you'll soon realize it's her, half dressed, no real nudity. You just see her back. She's putting on some kind of yoga gear and then a full costume that you'll later learn about.
Right, she's dressing up like Santa's little helper for some reason.
Yeah, and he's freaked out, and he's trying to adjust, like, what is this technology? What am I noticing? I do notice, I know I'm jumping a little ahead, like, in this whole scuffle, he does not know how to open drawers. Did anyone notice that? He's like looking for clothes, and he looks at the drawers, like pull out drawers. He looks at these drawers like that's future. Like, how do these drawers work? I've never opened a drawer or a box in my life.
Yeah, for someone who is time traveling knowingly, he is not playing it cool at all. He is just like bumbling around. He's saying weirdo stuff. He is not making any effort to blend in. He's dressing up like Dick Tracy for some reason.
Yeah, so he lost his clothes, but
Right.
ba-ding, he just upgraded to another sweet duster that was at the bottom of whoever's body he inhabited his
Yeah.
closet. Back to the duster.
Well, Helen Hunt even remarks, "You're going to wear that?" And he said,
Yeah,
"Yeah,
he's like, "I like it."
I
Yeah.
like it."
Then he also, I thought it was a jar or like a tube of hand cream. He puts it on his hand and rubs it in like, oh, hand cream, and then puts it all in his hair. And she's like, "What are you doing?" and his quote was, "Dry hair is for squids."
Yeah,
Squids in this movie is slang for dum-dums.
yeah, yeah.
Which I don't know if that was established before this moment, but
No, he starts using squids a lot.
Well,
Does not like the squids.
no one likes the squids. What is that? They never explain what that's. Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter.
And well, during this time, she's highlighting, like, we got to go. If
Yeah,
I'm
she's
late to
gonna be
work,
late
I'm
for
going to get
work.
fired. And then they jump into his sweet car. Mike, what was the car?
It was a Ford Thunderbird, but like a cool.
Yeah, very black,
Yeah.
convertible.
And he screams, "I love this car!"
Well, one question I had was, he's driving the car.
Yeah.
Does he know how to drive a car? I mean, it's 300 years later,
Well,
and he's wheeling this thing like he's
he's doing
Ray
all right.
Haroon.
Sure. I would assume that future car that we saw him pull up at the diner at the beginning, that's probably all automated. Like, beep, beep, press a
Exactly.
button. Like,
That's
I
That's
agree.
what all those
I mean-
hoses are for.
Yeah, I thought she would have been driving the car, but okay. So they go where? They take the car and they go.
They go to the mall.
Yeah, they got them all because
Go to
she's
the mall.
got her Santa gig job.
Yeah, she's taking pictures of kids with
Yeah,
Santa.
she's a photographer.
And Mrs. Claus is dressing her down.
Right.
Mrs. Claus is not happy that
Yeah,
she's late.
hurry up. The kids are waiting for you.
Yeah, so he's like, "I'm going to drop you off." And one of her comments was like, "Oh, did I give you my number?" He's like, "No." She's like, "Oh, thank God."
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, she was into this earlier, but now she's like, "You're."
Oh, she was
a
running
fucking
away
weirdo.
from him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but he's lurking around like a creeper, and so like these
yeah.
kids are going to Santa, and yeah, as my dad said, she's in charge of the photography, and She's taking pictures, and immediately this guy looks at Jack Deth, Santa that is,
Yeah.
and he starts kind of becoming purple and veiny, and he's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, it's a Trancer. And I don't know how this guy knew at all Jack Deth in another body was a future trooper, but he did, and Santa just flips out. And this is, again, what probably part 2 of 3 or 4 of my favorite parts of this movie. Because as Santa is freaking out and trying to fight, you get a lot of side shots of these kids who are just delighted that these kids are smiling, like, oh my God, Santa's punching this dude in the face, like no one knows what to do.
Yeah, the kids are into it.
Yeah, one woman looks at Helen Hunt, is this one of your friends? Like he's like apple rousing.
I mean, it was, yeah.
And he is able to take, Jack Deth is able to take out Santa, and something, if we didn't fully note before, is then a new set of cops come. So Jack Deth...
Well, wait a minute, the security guard.
Oh, that's right.
Right? The Santa pins Jack Deth against the wall with reindeer horns. So he
you
can't
do.
move, right? And then the security guard shows up.
With a gun.
With a
so
gun.
Mall cop and a gun.
Right. And so go ahead. What
I was going
happened?
to say, well, then the real cops come, and something that we forgot to say, and they said that...
No, but wait, then Santa fights the security guard, right?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Security guard.
He holds a gun to his head.
Yeah.
He steals the gun.
Yeah, he steals the gun.
Yeah.
So now Jack Deth takes out Santa. Sorry.
Yeah.
But so the cops then come, but something we forgot to say is, and they said this is going to be tricky. They said this guy Whistler that you've been tracking down, he has inhabited a body of a detective. So he's actually working within, the Los Angeles police force. And we don't know who this guy is, but they're like, this is going to be kind of a problem because it's not some bozo hanging around. It's like some dude who actually has authority who could like be a total thorn in your side. And it is very clear when this guy rolls up, you know exactly it's him. He's got like dead eyes. He's saying weird things. And every single police officer obeys his commands if they're tranced or not. Like this guy must be super high up, but yeah.
It was a lieutenant, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And something I noted is the first time he shot a Trancer, the body just like glows red and disappears. But for whatever reason, this time he shot it with a handgun with bullets instead of a laser, and the body doesn't disappear until 20 minutes or so.
Well, he's
later
in a
when it
body
comes
bag. The body's in a body bag,
Yeah.
and he's there fully formed. And then they open up the body bag, and they looked, and then it disappears. And that's when the lieutenant says, "Get this body out of here and let's carry on."
Yeah, not even a body. Get a bag.
whatever, yeah.
I have an empty bag for you.
No one
Yeah.
really seemed alarmed by that.
Yeah, because you're picking up an empty bag.
Yeah.
I mean,
He looks fatter when we put him in here.
Yeah,
This is
right.
not- I can
That's right.
carry a couple of these now. Yeah, so...
So
go
they're
on.
back in the car, and this is where Death highlights to Helen Hunt's character, Lena, everything.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to believe me, but I'm a future trooper, and this guy's, zombie and trancing people, and Trancers are real, and you know how it goes. And she's like, great.
Well, she buys in pretty quickly, though. It doesn't take her a long time.
no,
to-
I was like immediately she
Yeah.
fell for the whole story, and
But remember, she tried to leave, so... yeah.
Well, so he has a photograph of the ancestor that he's supposed to find, and there's...
And remember, there's two.
Two of
So
them.
There's
each
two of them, yeah.
chairman has an ancestor, and this is one of the chairmans.
Right.
It's the male chairman's ancestor, Chris.
Yeah.
Who we find out is just working at like a tanning.
Yeah,
bed
he's like a
salon.
hunky boy who owns a tanning salon.
again, just to clarify, Whistler wants to kill the ancestors in this time frame so that they don't propagate and have a family
Right.
that leads up to the people on the council. So
Yes.
if they kill the ancestors, there is no council.
And presumably at this point, Whistler doesn't know who he's looking for. He's trying to figure it out.
Also, sorry, Mike.
Jack does know who he's looking for, and that really pooches the whole deal because he just leads Whistler right to everybody.
Also, if you're going to go back in time, why choose the 80s? I mean, maybe they're like 300 years previous to our 22 whatever. There's these Neanderthals are going to be so primitive. I mean, these people have guns and various other things. Why don't you go to like 1840 with a machine gun and just mow people down? Like there would be no technology to deal with. You could do whatever you want, but
He doesn't want that. He just wants the council gone.
Yeah.
And I think it was mentioned kind of just tangentially that this was the time when they were all in some kind of like approximate vicinity to each other.
Also, when Deth is explaining the trancing process to Helen Hunt, he's like, "Don't worry, he can't trance you.
You're not a
Trance
squid."
only works on squids." And so she's
weak-minded.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
is not weak-minded, and he has established that knowing her for 5 minutes.
He can tell.
Yeah, I mean, you put on a Christmas outfit and you work with Santa. You're above.
You're okay.
Yeah, you have North Pole powers.
Right.
Yeah, so he gets at the spa where Chris is working.
Yeah, and like this guy's impossibly tan, and he's kind of explaining like, "Hey, someone's going to kill you. You got to come with me. It's the come with me if you want to live thing."
So they walk down a hallway, and immediately Chris, I would watch this probably daily. The real quick clip is Chris is behind him and just jump kicks him in the head. And then there's a lot of ones that I noted in this.
This is one of the ancestors.
Yeah, correct.
At the tanning salon.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he jump kicks
Yeah.
him in the head, and Deth is out in one blow, just unconscious. And we find out very quickly that Chris has been tranced, and it's too late for him. And Jack Deth wakes up in not a tanning bed, but a tanning tunnel,
tanning.
I don't know what room that was.
I mean, it was a room, a vault. I mean, it's a tanning
Yeah, it was a tanning booth. I
booth
think.
of something.
But you stand in it. It's like
Yeah.
a separate room.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it was a separate room.
and he burns himself a little on
Well,
it.
the walls are hot.
Yeah.
He tries to break out, and he's burning his arm.
And we
his
find out he's
shoulder.
trapped in there because Chris put a surfboard against the door.
Right,
He can't
exactly.
Real
Couldn't
LA
open
move
it up.
there. Yeah.
And also at the same time, Helen Hunt tries to leave and drives off, but comes back and thinks, maybe I should be part of this.
Yeah.
So she rushes in and sets Jack Deth free, and is like, I do believe you. What happens to Chris? I can't remember.
She shoots him.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm just taking a lot of notes, and something.
Yeah.
I know he's dead. I was like,
yeah,
how exactly
yeah,
did he die?
yeah.
Wait, no, I thought he was dead when she got there.
No.
Someone. Yeah, that's a good question.
No, I know he was shot. I thought when she walked in, he was already dead. I didn't think she shot him, but I was also taking notes, so I might be wrong.
Wait a minute. That's
I-
a good.
I thought
that's
she
a good-
came in, she saw the body just like disappear, and then she took the surfboard off the door.
Yeah, I think, you know what, Dad, I think Mike's right that there it is unexplained that this is just like a dead, oozed body, and that guy is dead.
Because Jack knew where to go, but he, in the tussle with Santa Claus, he dropped the photo with the address, and Whistler found it.
That's right.
So I think what we're meant to infer is that Whistler, between the locking in
That's
the
right.
tanning booth and Helen Hunt coming back, Whistler came in and shot this guy.
Yeah, this is a leap. I agree, but I do believe Mike is right because at Santa's workshop, Whistler finds the picture and the address of this guy.
Right.
And so, we don't really know how he goes or how he dies. Helen Hunt gets in there.
Well,
and
which is curious. Yeah, you guys are right. But what is curious is then the body is close to the room where.
Oh yeah, it's just like in the hallway,
Right,
outside.
and the surfboard is blocking the door.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're Whistler, wouldn't you think? Because Whistler knows that Deth is looking for this ancestor. Wouldn't you think that Whistler might want to see what's on the other side of that door?
Maybe he knew, and he was just cool with them burning to death.
Well, maybe. See, but we're inferring.
Also,
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, because I can fill this up.
Yeah.
Why was he tranced while Jack got there? So Whistler might have actually gotten there before, tranced him.
That's fair.
yeah, there's a lot of questions.
A lot of unanswered
A lot of questions.
But I do like that when Jack falls out of this tanning room, Helen Hunt goes, "Don't be dead," and he goes, "How's my tan?" Also,
Yeah.
not holding up well.
Oh, that was cool.
Yeah. Helen Hunt walks in with a super awful Confederate flag
Oh,
jean
yeah.
jacket.
Yeah.
Luckily that we don't see that again. That's not going to hold up too well. That's not what you want to remember in the Trancer
No, they'll
series.
leave that out of the remake.
But then the cops show up.
And they call Deth. They sick the cops on Deth because he is now known as the Santa Claus Killer.
Yeah, yeah.
Like within 10 minutes.
But they have to escape.
Yeah.
They don't just walk out. The cops show up with the lieutenant in the lead, and then what happens?
Well, they go outside.
Yeah, well,
And so that's when we see the magical long second watch come into action, where Helen Hunt is in danger, and Whistler and these troopers, some entranced, some not, or maybe not entranced, just tranced, are there. And Whistler shoots a bullet towards Helen Hunt specifically, and Jack flips the switch on his watch, which again is supposed to give him 10 seconds. Like, he's basically stopped time. Well, everything is stopped in time except for him.
Right.
And he has 10 seconds to do whatever. And this is what we alluded to earlier. 10 seconds is legitimately 4 to 5 minutes.
Right.
I was joking that this guy can make a sandwich in the meantime.
Yeah.
He gets Helen Hunt and picks her up like a sack of potatoes, throws her over his shoulder, runs past Whistler. Please note all of this. Yeah. Runs past Whistler like inches from his face, gets into a car.
It doesn't shoot him.
Yeah, it doesn't shoot him.
He's got the revolver.
Gets into the car, pulls keys out of Helen Hunt's jacket, about to put it in the ignition, and the 10 seconds has elapsed. They're able to get away where the cops are shooting. And Helen Hunt, and as I said, they do follow up. Helen Hunt goes, "Why didn't you get him?" He's like, "Well, I didn't have time to save you and to get him, and you're more important," which honestly is not true at all. I don't want to say that there always have to be casualties, but you literally had a chance to take down a tyrant, like a monster of a person. And if someone dies, that's unfortunate, but like millions of people and the earth itself are going.
But he was frozen.
Yeah.
He was frozen.
He also had plenty of time.
In a nanosecond, all he had to do was pull the trigger of the revolver. And
he could have casually stabbed him as he had like repeatedly stab.
He could have almost poisoned them to death.
Right. Yeah.
He could have put him in the trunk of his own car.
Right.
Yeah, and I said this is as the bullet flies past, it's very bad. And I said, was this the inspiration for The Matrix? And I said that jokingly.
Because the photography shows the bullet.
Yeah, they got the bullet going by
in slow motion. Yeah, past his head or her head.
Yeah, and so as they're driving off and the cops start shooting at him, Deth turns around while driving, takes one shot with his gun, and blows out the tire of apparently the one cop car out of the 40 cops that are there. Only one of them had a car, and now they are disabled and can't go after them, and they drive off.
And where do they go?
Where do they go?
They go.
They go to Chinatown.
They go to Chinatown because Helen Hunt has a friend who's out of town
for Christmas.
And she has like a weird punk rock apartment above this terrible bar.
I like that my dad immediately was like, "This is in Chinatown." I mean, and we'll talk about that punk rock scene. Like, why is this in Chinatown?
That's the only place they can get a gig.
Yeah, probably. They are playing Christmas music when we do get.
They are playing Christmas punk rock.
Wow, it was punk rock Christmas music.
Yeah,
they're not just playing like.
So they get to this apartment and they order some Chinese food and they're eating it and everyone seems pretty happy. And I like this. And Deth goes, "What are those?" And Helen Hunt goes, "Oh, those are fortune cookies." Yeah. And she's like, "Let me read your fortune." And she said, she opens it up and she says, "The fortune is, I'll kill you and your bitching girlfriend." And Deth loses it. How did he know I was here? Oh my God. Where did he get, where does he know this knowledge? He's like, "Calm down, buddy. I'm just joking."
It was a joke.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I thought that was pretty funny.
I was more amused that he does not find it funny whatsoever.
Right.
Helen Hunt is just really pleased his punch to be called a bitching girlfriend.
Yeah. She says it twice.
Yeah. Yeah, she's pretty happy about that.
And then we hear this booming music. He's like, "What the hell is that?" And she's like, "Oh, well, this is above a club and there's a punk bar downstairs and maybe we should go down there and
have some fun."
Yeah, for whatever reason, he's like, "Yeah, sure, great."
Yeah,
so she dresses up.
Yeah, she looks nice.
Yeah.
He's wearing like the same thing, but he clearly has like an earpiece on.
He puts in an earpiece for the police scanner.
Right.
So he's just walking around a punk club in like khaki pants, a button-down shirt, and a police scanner.
Right, he looks like a total narc. Right. Like I'm surprised he didn't get his ass kicked, but then he almost does.
Yeah, we meet Helen Hunt's ex-boyfriend who gets really up front and in everyone's face, like, "Hey, you haven't called me. What's going on? What are you doing here with this old dude? Like, come on."
I mean, that's a fair assessment.
That was
twice as.
She's.
Well, again, I still don't know how old the body that he possessed is.
Well, just his looks. He looks like he's in his 50s at least.
Yeah.
And she's 20 years old.
But that we see, but like the body he possesses, couldn't that have been?
Oh, that's a good point.
Are you positing that like he looked different in that world than what we were seeing?
Well, I would have to say that because the way we meet it is him and Helen Hunt had a one-night stand. And then the next day, I would be alarmed if I was like, "Who are you?" And he's like, it's like I'm a completely different person. Like, she would have to notice that he's not looking the same.
Well,
as
I just assumed that's what his ancestor looked like.
Oh, okay.
That's how I read
it's
that.
unclear.
Yeah, they don't mention it.
Yeah, do they in their own mind see somebody different, or do they, like in Helen Hunt's case, does she see the boyfriend she was with, or does she actually see Deth?
I just assumed she had like a daddy thing, and that she was just into older guys.
No, what
And
I'm saying is,
what
what did he look like to her?
So Mike is saying that the ancestors would look identical, and that's why she wouldn't. And my view was the audience is seeing the actor is still the same, but Helen Hunt would see someone else. We're just
That's what I'm. That's but it's not clear.
So you're
Yeah,
thinking
but it's not
it was
clear.
like in the second terrible Wonder Woman movie, where we as the audience see Chris Pine,
Yes.
but Wonder Woman sees that other derpy guy.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't. It's not explained.
Yeah.
But the way I pictured it when I was watching it is that's just what that guy looked like. Like Helen Hunt was banging a dude that looked like Jack Deth.
Sure.
all right.
I mean,
It
and
could
she
be,
knows
yeah.
nothing about him. She's like, I
Right.
thought you were a nice guy yesterday. I'm like, I don't know.
But I would like you guys to describe the clientele in the nightclub in Chinatown.
So they're all white punk rock dudes.
Exactly.
It is if you thought what in America in mid 80s would someone with a punky mohawk look like, you just walked into this nightclub. Everyone has a mohawk. Everyone has dyed hair, like kind of like studded vests.
Right.
Just
It's
really
like-
kind
it's
of
like a
gutter.
rancid music
Yeah, it's like
video.
a real gutter punk kind of situation. You're probably drinking crappy beer. The band is playing Jingle Bells in a punk rock, unaudible way.
Right. In Chinatown.
In Chinatown.
And there's no Chinese people in this club.
They don't want to be there.
Yeah. Okay.
They hate that. They don't like Christmas.
And so then the punker gets, as I noted, in the face of Helen Hunt and Jack Deth, and then spits in Jack Deth's face. And then, as I said, all comes back to one. In one punch, Jack Deth just floors this guy, and he's in the corner knocked out. 3 more punkers come, and each one goes down with one punch. He is the one punch master.
Yeah, he's a grappler.
Yeah.
Which at that point reminded me of the opening scene where the waitress behind the counter, the Trancer, attacks him, and it's a brawl. I mean, it's like she's a Trancer.
She's like 80 pounds.
Yeah,
And then these punkers are bigger.
she's giving him the fight of his life.
Well,
Yeah.
these punk rockers, they didn't have soup.
And they didn't have trance.
If they
were
only had,
trance.
if they only
They were
had soup to
trans.
throw at them,
Yeah.
they
So
could.
go ahead.
Maybe the
Yeah.
trancing gives you powers.
Maybe it does. Yeah.
And he just knocks him out, and they just immediately go back to the apartment. And she's
Oh, wait a
like,
minute. But here's another. So he walks in there and he starts getting into the groove of the music.
Oh, yeah.
He starts dancing with her.
He's feeling
And
a little bit.
Yeah, and he's like really not a good dancer.
No,
He's not.
and
That's
no one should be
correct.
dancing to this music.
Yeah,
No.
and this old guy in the middle of all this is pretty odd.
Yeah.
And so after he takes out all the punkers,
Yeah.
they just immediately go back to the apartment. Hard cut back to the apartment. And she's like, it is Christmas, and I have a gift for you. He's like, oh, yeah, it was July where I left. And she gives him a toy robot. I have a lot of questions. One was, where did you get this? When did you get this?
Yes.
You were with this guy all day.
Why did you get him this? And the side note is, I wrote, I want that robot.
It looked like a pretty cool robot. Yeah.
That was a cool toy robot. And they don't really talk too much about it. He's like, thanks. And
Yeah.
he does nothing with the robot.
Right. Then they're about to get down on some Christmas boogie.
Yeah, it's Christmas. They're in the mood. Sexual tensions are rising, and then we see a little girl.
Yeah, a 12-year-old girl knocks
at
on
the
the
door.
door, but surprised, it's McNulty. But this is the only ancestor he could find to put his consciousness into, so he's got to walk around as this little kid, and he totally cock blocks Death, and he's like, "You're off the case." I think, yeah.
You got to come back. The council wants you.
Yeah, so I want to
Yeah.
note this because
Yeah.
later this is
is
a
very
plot-
important.
This is a plot hole,
Right.
Because
Yeah.
he basically shoots McNulty as a girl. This little girl shoots Death with this antidote or tranq gun, and it brings him right back to the future.
Council.
Yeah,
Laying
And-
on the table
and
where they put him.
Yeah, they're like, what the hell are you doing, dude? You're going to clubs, we're about to have sex with this woman. Like, you're supposed to be on a case. He's like, this is the lead. Like, you've got to let me do this. But I do want to, as my dad was noting, this is important because if they could do this,
Wow.
they could do it anytime.
That's right.
And they highlight later that this is an impossibility, that they could not do something like this, even though they show that it's
Right.
still possible.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird.
Yeah, so they yoink him back to the future.
Right.
And the one remaining council member, because the tan guy was killed, so his descendant is now dead.
Right.
And
So he kind of disappears.
he just disappears.
And when he's in the future, they reference Helen Hunt as cotton candy. Like they're hanging out with cotton candy, and you need to get this.
Right.
And he's like, she is the lead.
Right.
So this councilwoman is like, you're off the case. Like, we can't have this. We're going to send in some other dude.
And she says, I am the only council person left because that other person is dead. Like,
Right.
we're down to one.
Right, but Death's response is like, no, you shouldn't do that. Like, I'm onto something. She's like, oh, really? Cool.
Yeah, there's
Great.
Helen Hunt's the lead.
And she's like, she went from like, you're off the case to like, oh, no, let's do it.
Yeah.
You can just go back.
Yeah, I mean, her whole, not only her life, her like half her lineage is in jeopardy. She's like, all right, like
Yeah,
this guy might know. So they quote unquote send him back down the line.
Down the line,
That's what going back in the past is. And they warp him back in to the 80s, and he wakes up and he's in bed with Helen Hunt,
Right.
clearly after they had sex. And she says something like, "You were an animal." He's like, "What are you talking about?"
So now here we go. So let's talk about this. So we learn later on that when the future people are in the ancestors' bodies, they have the actual person has no recollection. When the person leaves their body, they just kind of come back online. They're like, what happened? So basically, this dude, Death's ancestor,
Let's say Steve.
whatever his name is, he woke up
In mid-sex
like
with
mid-sex with Helen Hunt. And he's like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to go with it.
Mike, I'm going to tell you this. When you are a future trooper, you got to do what you got to do to get out of it. And if you are not a future trooper, that mentality still applies. That
Well, so this guy,
it would just not be polite.
he woke up mid-sex. He didn't know what happened that entire day. He just, like, the last thing he remembers, he had just finished having sex with Helen Hunt. He wakes up again, about to have sex with Helen Hunt, and it just doesn't say anything. He's like, let's just go with this.
Mike, for someone who went to college, this is just Cabo all over again. This is just what college kids do on their break.
I missed out on the
They have a
90s
bunch of
college.
drinks. You wake up, you're like, I don't know who I'm having sex with, but everyone's okay with this. It's for the greater good.
Yeah. But so, yeah, Death, he comes to back in the past, just again missed out on the Helen Hunt sex, and he's like, every single time, God damn it. He's pretty bummed about that.
Yeah, and then I have something on the side that he's watching TV. So she goes to bed. She's like, "You were an animal. I'm so tired." And he's like,
Yeah.
screw this. So he turns on TV and he's fumbling with a remote control, and he just so happens to see the lieutenant that has been possessed by whistlers on TV talking about how he's going to give everyone these IDs so he could track everyone, we could track the homelessness, and everyone's going to be safe.
He's
But
doing a quote-unquote hobo roundup.
as
Well,
one does.
Well, wait
yeah.
a minute. One thing about the TV, while they're in the apartment, he turns on they turn on the TV, and he sees this old series, and it's Peter Gunn.
He sees Peter
which
Gunn,
was
yeah.
an actual series. They had the Peter Gunn music, and he's enthralled with it because he said, basically, he's saying, "Man, that's really a great cop."
Yeah.
In so many words.
And
loves
I
Peter
have to assume the director wanted that because some of the things the director did early on was he was directing the series Manhunt, and he did the series of Mission Impossible, at least in part. I saw that. I didn't see how
Oh,
much. but
really?
yeah. So I was like, that's kind of cool. Like not the movie,
Yeah.
but the TV series.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that kind of makes
Yeah.
sense that he'd want this throwback.
Yeah. I think the Peter Gunn theme was the first thing I learned how to play on bass also.
Yeah, so all of a sudden he's like, okay, Helen Hunt, wake up. Like, I know where we need to go. And he just keeps saying, like, where's Skid Row? Like it'd be like, hey, like, let's go to, fifth, in Colorado, big Colfax. Let's go to 14th and Broadway, Skid Row. Like and she's like, well, I'll just tell you there. And they get outside. And he says something, and he's alluding to, like, how do we get a cab? And she's like, we don't have money. So she hotwires to basically scooters. And,
Yeah.
and that's the future.
Well, they were motorcycles,
Yeah.
like
Kind
cheap
of.
end motorcycles.
They looked like
She hotwired them in about 3 seconds.
these wouldn't be like the Italian motorcycles that you see, but in the 80s, Dad,
Yeah.
like it was the same kind of like engine and stuff, but it was like more bulky plastic.
Yeah.
It just looked kind of,
Yeah.
it's super dated now.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if someone took a 1985 Casio keyboard and turned that into a scooter. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
A weird
that's
bulky
accurate,
plastic.
Yeah. And so they're going to Skid Row because they're looking for
The other woman's ancestor who is a former baseball player.
right,
And they find out that he is probably there.
Yeah.
That he's had a turn of luck, which for the worst. He's no longer a baseball player. He's living amongst the homeless in Skid Row, and they got to find this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read. So basically, they're all their interactions with this guy. The character is drunk. He's like a drunk hobo. Apparently, the actor.
Hobo roundup.
Yeah, apparently the actor was just super drunk the whole time. Because there are times like where I don't know if you noticed this, like when they jump out of a window at one point and he looks really confused, and Deth is like, no, we got to go this way. Like apparently that wasn't him acting. Like this was just a drunk guy that didn't know what was.
Yeah,
going
but they
on.
did an investigation first. They talked
Yeah.
to these three. It's Christmas now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they run into these three bust outs in a hobo village.
Skid Row.
Skid
Yeah.
Row, right? And they get the intelligence information from one of these dudes that leads them to a warehouse in
A paper
some-
mill, yeah, like some abandoned paper
Yeah,
mill. They're like,
yeah.
that's where we last saw this guy.
Yeah.
That's where you're gonna find
Yeah,
him.
and one of the three dudes wanted something in return, and she gives him a bag of
it looked like a protein bar. I
yeah,
don't know what it was.
a bag of something.
I was like, oh, you're not giving me like
Yeah,
booze?
yeah.
It's
I mean,
Christmas. It was like airplane peanuts.
yeah. What I was a little amazed about was that the hobo was appreciative of it.
Oh, he loved
now
it.
these guys were
Yeah.
all alcoholics. They were drinking,
was
booze
Christmas.
and wine.
Right.
You know?
Christmas.
So I mean, yeah. But what I'm saying is, they would normally say, "What the hell are you giving me? This is nothing. That's not what I want."
Well, no, I mean like drunks love peanuts. That's why they have them in the bowls at bars.
Evidently,
it keeps
right?
you going.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
And also shout out the hobo that gave him the tip. I don't know the actor's name, but he played Leonard from Community.
Yeah, we've mentioned Community numerous
Community
times, and
fans
Mike
out there.
eagle-eyed the hell out of that when we watched it. He's like, "Is that Leonard? Did you confirm that?"
I did.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it is actually.
That's awesome. Yeah, so they get to the
yeah.
paper mill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is there's a number of issues here. But
Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah, so we get to the paper mill, and Death's plan is
it's an abandoned paper.
yeah,
Yeah.
And so it's basically just like old concrete and kind of
Yeah.
slightly underground. It's
Yeah.
definitely like some like ramshackle area that people have taken over. And Death's like, hey, Helen Hunt, like you go off to the side. I don't want you in danger. He clearly is somewhat sweet on her and is very now even more protective, probably because he doesn't remember ever having sex with her. But
Right, he's missed out twice now. He wants to finally seal the deal.
but he feels a kinship that,
Yeah.
that maybe there's a third time's the charm. And he's like, I'm going to go in the paper mill. It's going to be better if I just go, stay behind. Kind of simultaneously, we have troopers or cops, like modern cops in Los Angeles, sweeping the area because Whistler has been like, you got to find these people, and this is the ancestor.
No, they knew that Whistler knew that
It was...
the ex-baseball player was hanging out there.
I didn't know if he knew it was exactly there or like the vicinity.
Didn't Death say that we got to get there because he knows?
I can't remember. Like I
I
know.
genuinely
No, I mean,
don't
it was-
remember.
Well, how about this? I know Whistler knows that this guy is part of the homeless community.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if he
No,
knew
no.
the exact location.
Yeah, and because that's why they had the cops.
I think my
sweeping.
dad's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's why he tells Helen Hunt, like, it's too dangerous. Like, let me slip in and
exactly.
out. Ninja style.
Let's separate. Right.
So,
the worst thing you can do.
So as he's
right.
walking around, Death, that is, he finds basically like a cardboard shanty house, and he
In the
first one
building,
too.
yeah.
First
Yeah,
one
yeah.
opens it up, and lo and behold, there's a baseball mitt. So clearly it's that guy, and he's not there.
Yeah.
And the police start sweeping through. So Death comes up with this quick plan where he jumps in the cardboard shanty house.
Because he hears the cops coming.
Yeah, puts on a hat, and the cops are like, "Are you this guy?" He's like, "What? What are you doing?" And he pretends to throw up, and he's clearly, just not that person. The cops are like, it's not this guy. Like,
Well, they never see his face.
yeah,
but the one,
they never shine a light. They just go, "It's not him."
yeah, it's
like,
not- they walk away.
like, yeah, you basically see this guy's chin.
Yeah.
Like that's all you see. Like, It's not him. Like, I don't know how, like, a chin detective.
He's
but-
throwing up. No one has time for
Yeah,
that.
we don't want to.
But he refers to the cops as troopers.
Ah, that's right, Mike.
Yeah. So yeah, well, one of the cop figures is
Well, two cops walk away.
Yeah.
And then
well, how about this? Two cops walk away. One cop, you noted this, Ed, I have no idea what happens to the other cop.
no,
Like,
what I'm saying though is the two cops walk away, and one says,
that guy
hey,
called us troopers.
Yeah.
He called us troopers. So go ahead.
And then we never see one of those cops ever again. Like,
right.
ever. Like,
Right.
that guy's like, I'm going to go home and get dinner.
He had an appointment.
Well,
or something.
so they go back to where he was pretending to be the ex-baseball player in the cardboard house he was in, and
And Death is gone.
Death is gone. So
And-
now the hunt is on.
And simultaneously, we have a hobo baseball booze contest happening. That's kind of in the background where everyone's throwing broken bottles and various other things and doing these things.
No, what was going on was the ex-baseball player was a pitcher, and the situation was that one of the bums had a stick that he was using as a bat, and the ex-baseball player was the pitcher throwing a bottle in place of a baseball, and they went through a scene there, swinging and whatnot, and they're below on a lower level than where the previous action in the building took place. And then what happened?
I'm trying to figure out how Helen Hunt gets back involved with this. It's kind of choppy in my notes. Does she just come back in?
I think she just comes.
She basically, then I'm going to assume that she basically just walks in, finds Death. They see this hobo baseball contest.
wait. Yeah,
No.
Death?
No. No.
Yeah, Death gets involved. The one single cop shows up in Trancer form.
Yes.
That's right.
And
Yes.
and Death and the cop battle, and then Helen Hunt shows
No,
up.
oh, the cop gets the drop
Yeah.
on Death.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
wait, no, one thing. The cop makes Death disarm. Throw it on your gun,
Right.
throw it on your watch. Because we forgot to say,
right.
when he came back to, the present time, he told whoever, the James Bond Q of this movie, hey, could you reload me with that watch and that gun? That would be sweet. And she's like, down the road, I'll do that. And does it 5 minutes, why I said earlier, why is she not doing this all the time?
Yeah.
Like,
All of a sudden, the little box appears.
yeah, you could only use the watch once. Can you send me 100 watches? Like, just
right.
keep them coming. Like, why let it?
So he has the new watch.
Yeah, and he has to throw it to the ground.
So the cop
and
gets a drop on him. Throw your gun down, away as far as you can, and throw that watch away. So then the cop says, then his face starts transforming. The cop's face starts transforming, and he's going to kill Death. And all of a sudden, he's got the gun going. He's going to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
Then we get Helen Hunt.
Yeah, and boom!
Yeah.
And it's like Helen Hunt shoots the transformer. Or
Trancer.
Trancer.
Transformer. No.
Yeah.
And they tell Ashby, who's the baseball player, your life's in danger. You have to go with me. We need to go to Chinatown.
Yeah, right.
Why do I need to go to Chinatown? Just follow me and
Yeah,
we'll do it.
yeah.
Right.
And they immediately run outside, back to the scooters that are hot wired and still on.
No, you missed they fall through the floor. The cops come into the building.
I thought they fell through the floor, and that's where the hobo baseball contest.
That's
is.
right. That's right.
So that's already happened.
Yeah, but then as they Hunt, Helen Hunt and Death fall through they fall through the floor. They grab the baseball player, right? But then the lieutenant with the cops are standing above them.
That's
Yes.
right.
And there's right.
Yeah.
And now the chase is on. Now the cops are shooting at them. They're trying to.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Then they are able to run outside.
Then they run
The
outside.
scooters are still on amongst
exactly
5
So
cop
they're running
cars.
from the cop. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And no cops are outside.
You're
just
right.
like 5 cop
Abandoned
cars.
cop cars.
Yeah, with
the lights
sirens on, doors open, like
right.
probably keys in the
Yeah,
ignition.
right. So go ahead.
Whatever you need to do. I just made a side comment that this little like abandoned paper mill warehouse, tangential to this movie, I just wrote, everything must smell like urine everywhere.
Yeah.
Just the way it's filmed, I could smell what that place was, and you need to get out immediately.
Yeah.
But yeah, they drive off on their scooters yet again.
In an escape from now the cops that are chasing them.
And they decide to split up.
And as my dad said, the
as
cops
one would.
are trying to shoot at them as they're leaving and falling through. My dad's like, every one of these cops is a terrible shot.
Yeah, I mean, it's like...
Well, I noted it's exactly, Dad, if you didn't know this, there's a ongoing examination that stormtroopers in Star Wars are the worst shots ever. Like, how are these guys never hitting anyone? You have 5,000 stormtroopers and you cannot shoot one person
target,
like, 10 feet in front of you. Like, what is going on?
Well, that follows suit here.
Yeah. And so, what do they go back to Chinatown in the apartment yet again?
Yeah, Helen Hunt gets shot on the way back. And
She gets winged.
Yeah,
she gets winged.
Yeah, she's grazed in the arm.
Yeah. So,
But yeah, they get back to the apartment. They're trying to sober up Hap or whatever the fuck his name is. Wasn't his, or is that the actor's name?
Well, well, it's Ashby, but
Ash.
But they make him take a shower because he smells awful.
No, they throw him in a bathtub
and they
with his clothes on.
and they call him Hophead.
Yeah.
So
Hophead.
Okay.
With his clothes on, with his baseball cap on.
That was
and they
super gross.
and they give him a scrub brush that looks like if you were in the Old West and you had like a tin bathtub like soaker, that's the brush they give you, and they're like, go for it.
Well, and they're telling him all this, like, you got to clean up, you got to sober up. They're trying to.
Now this guy's been drinking.
Oh, this guy is.
He's totally soaked.
Oh yeah,
in
no,
booze.
he's beyond.
We also forgot
But-
that on the way over, Helen Hunt's like, "Hey, dude, I found your watch." He's like, "Oh, I lost my watch," and she's like, "I have it."
Oh, yeah.
But he steals it. So when they're trying to shower him, they roll up his sleeve, and he's got like 17 watches.
Take all this shit off.
And one of them is the damn watch again. He's like, "Give me my watch." And that's where Deth actually gets really pissed. He's like, "Come on, dude."
Yeah, well, he's pissed because like he's trying to instill in this guy that like.
But the watch was on a different floor.
Right, but like that he has to. He's like the holder of the future now. Like he has to get married and have kids.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because like he's the one
that's gonna keep
he's got to keep the thing going.
civilization in check.
And this guy is like, bro, what?
Yeah.
Like I'm covered.
I'm drunk.
I'm
drunk in
covered
real life, dude.
I'm covered in pee. I don't know what's going on.
So go ahead. They got this. Go ahead.
I mean, so okay. So we noted before that somewhere in a conversation, Deth tells Helen Hunt, "Here's the situation. You know, I was married in the future. You know, but I had this wife, and you know, I was fighting some Trancers, and you know, I just he's so casually. He's like,
very casual.
Like, I just used my wife as Trancer bait, and things went wrong, and she's dead.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell?
They killed her.
So funny enough, now Helen Hunt is Trancer bait.
Right.
She is on a rooftop of this building that she's staying at, and Whistler comes in, and she's looking at outside with binoculars, and you think, oh, she's spying, but this is a setup. And she's looking down at who you think Deth is wearing a sweet duster and walking around. And Whistler comes in and, you know, grabs her by like the neck and, you know, from the back, has a gun and is like, tell him to come up here, you know. And the person on the bottom ground level who has the duster looks up, and it's the ex-baseball player. And all of a sudden Deth walks out. He's like, dude, we trapped you. We knew we were going to trick you the whole time. And this was an ultimate setup. Finally, my Trancer bait worked.
Well, he actually he called him on the phone earlier and was was like, you can have him.
me.
Like, you can kill this guy. All I want to do is stay in 1984.
That's right.
And bang Helen Hunt.
But it was still bait. Like this was
She
ultimately
was still
set
the
up.
bait. Yeah.
So they have this meet set up, right? Okay. And the guy in the duster is below on the street. Helen Hunt is on a rooftop, and Whistler grabs her, right?
Yeah. And then Deth shows up. And then
Shows up where?
on the rooftop.
No, wait a minute. Whistler starts shooting at the guy in the duster. Remember? Then he takes the and the guy in the duster runs and jumps in a
dumpster.
In the dumpster, yeah. He just gets out of there.
He does a front flip into the dumpster, jump front flip, and he says something too. He's like, "F this."
Yeah.
That's what I think I noted was
That was
fourth.
the fourth one. Yeah. No, he's out of there.
So the thing is, it's not Deth. It's the baseball player,
Right.
who all of a sudden sobers up and is part of the whole setup. Like now he's in control, he's coordinated.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And he's
now,
throwing bombs.
Hear me out. Maybe they just put some alcohol in the dumpster and they're like,
Yeah,
get
right.
from point
Could be.
A to B.
Right.
This guy will do
Right.
it. This guy will do anything
Right.
to get from point A to B.
right.
But yeah, it's ultimately a setup, and it's on Whistler like, haha, we got you, and Death shows up, in the from the shadows with his gun. But
Yeah, he's like,
This is great. This parts are
oh,
great.
I counted. That was
Yeah.
6 shots.
Yeah.
Thinking that the Whistler's out of bullets. Helen Hunt is like, bro, it was 5.
Five.
immediately
right.
5 minutes,
Right.
he takes another pot shot at him.
Right.
So Whistler grabs Helen Hunt, right? And
Tosses her off a roof.
Yeah, just throws her off the roof.
well, he's confronting. There's 3 people on the roof. Whistler, Helen Hunt, and he's got Helen Hunt by the throat, right? And Death. And Whistler says, what does he say? He says, basically, I've got you. You love this girl.
Right.
And now and basically I'm going to kill her.
Yeah,
I mean, he
whatever,
doesn't use
whatever,
those words.
it was like whatever deal we had is bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, you knew I wouldn't do this. I knew you wouldn't do this. I'm going to make sure your life is a living hell. Like, it's almost like, even if I die, I'm going to kill the one thing that you want on this earth.
But here's the question. He's the lieutenant of police throughout the whole show.
Right.
He's got uniformed cops with him with rifles.
Probably has a
but now he's the only one there.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, to add to that, like, he probably has, like, literally, like, like professional trained, like, police sniper access.
Right.
He probably has access to helicopters.
Right.
Like, if this is really happening and this is the Santa Claus killer and they think he's some kind of serial killer on the loose, yeah, I agree with that.
And now he's doing. So go ahead.
Well, yeah. So he throws Helen Hunt off the roof, and he does have that watch again, and bam, the ultimate long second is in play. And good Lord, do we see again those long second? So he
This
runs
is great.
past Whistler again.
Yeah, right.
He could have run past Whistler while throwing him off the roof.
Yeah.
But instead, he takes off his belt and uses the belt as a zip line where he puts it over a wire and goes down to the ground to make sure he catches Helen Hunt as she falls off the roof.
He catches her in his arms.
Yeah.
And he's got a lot of time. So 10
like-
seconds, he had 5 seconds to spare.
He could have at least like give him a cheap shot on the nuts when you're running past him.
Yeah,
just
I mean,
like
just
pulls out his
something.
pants,
Yeah,
pulls
right,
out,
yeah.
shame him.
Bam.
Yeah.
So go ahead. This is one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Go for it, Mike.
No. What happens? What's happening?
Well, then Whistler is on the time on the watch runs out. Whistler's on the roof.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Go ahead. And then what happens?
And then the drunk guy gets out of the dumpster.
Right.
And I think
now wait a minute. Whistler's got a gun, right?
Whistler's got a gun. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and he's going to shoot.
but
right?
presumably he's out of bullets.
No, wait a minute. Was Whistler hanging by his hands?
Well, so Whistler was on the roof, and I think he was brandishing the gun.
Ashby starts throwing bottles.
No, that's my favorite part, but-
he throws one and it hits him in the face.
Yeah.
And he kind of stumbles, and then he falls and he's hanging from
That's
the
what
building.
it was, yeah.
And then Ashby throws Ashby, yeah.
now,
Yeah, Ashby,
now
it's
you got
Ashby.
to understand.
Yeah.
Ashby's
In a dumpster.
and a washed up drunk baseball
ground
player.
level.
Right.
And this is
like
on the
3
roof of like
stories. Yeah.
6 stories,
Yeah, it's something.
right?
And
And he winds up, and what does he do?
He
Mike?
throws another bottle and it hits him in the hand.
Right. So the first bottle hits him in the head. He falls.
Right.
Whistler falls off. He's hanging, and then go ahead.
Yeah, and then the second bottle hits him in the hand.
That's my favorite. I mean, 2
Yeah.
direct hits.
2 direct hits. And
6 stories up.
and he falls into a fountain, I guess.
Yes,
and
I
he's-
wrote that. He falls into a fountain.
And he's fine. He just gets up. He's like, oh, man, this sucks.
And somewhere, all 3 of us lost track of this. There was originally 2 vials. We do not know how one broke.
Yeah.
Or I have a theory now. When he was given the upgrade, remember they sent him a gun and a watch again?
Mm-hmm.
Did that gun only have 1 vial? Did a vial
I thought
break?
there was 2 in there.
There
for
was
some-
initially 2.
Yeah.
No. I'm saying at that moment
Okay.
in time when he opens it up.
Maybe he dropped one.
Yeah.
I
didn't
don't know.
see it.
You know,
I-
Sometimes we're writing notes too.
I have
We
to
just don't
confess,
catch it.
I only saw this movie once, and there were
Yeah.
so many distractions that I can't remember at all. But what happened, guys?
So they're like, you only have 2 vials, and you could either. So the choices were, well, initially it's supposed to be you give the vial, and it's going to cure this guy, and Whistler just goes back to nothing. He doesn't have a body to go back to. And they originally wanted him to go back to the body and to go to the court system.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
Well, yeah, it's not really established, but it's kind of assumed that because that his body is dead now, that his brain will.
Yeah,
just
my
go.
thought is like once you kill this, the consciousness cannot float to another thing.
Right.
And the other vial was to bring him back.
Right.
And he's like, no, I have to give the vial to Whistler. We got to stop this. So they give it to Whistler, and the normal person comes back. He's like, what the hell's going on? Like, where am I? Like, Merry Christmas.
But they didn't. But they didn't know. I mean, the question was, there was only one vial left. Do they give it to Whistler or do they give it to Deth?
Yes.
To bring him back.
And Deth decides, I'm going to give it to Whistler. We got to end this.
Go ahead. I mean, this is you're leading up to the main question.
We're in the last 30 seconds.
Yeah,
of this
I
film.
wrote. Can't read my handwriting. Ashby does something. He has some kind of letter. I don't remember. He gives him a letter or something like "Go on." I can't remember.
I don't.
And now Jack Deth essentially is stuck. And my question is,
Deth sticks the vial in Whistler's throat. And then his mind changes.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like that guy's back to normal.
That guy's
we assume Whistler's dead. But the guy who is
Whistler's not dead. He just goes to a different. His mind is altered.
Well, no. So the human in the 1980s who was possessed by Whistler is no longer possessed.
Right.
And my assumption is since Whistler no longer has a tethered body in the future where his conscience could go to, he is no longer in existence.
But that body, the lieutenant, is alive.
Correct. Right. Like that guy is back.
So go ahead.
And Jack Deth highlights like I'm stuck. And this is what I noted before. What do you mean? Like all it takes is someone else to go back and shoot him with his trank darts.
Right. Exactly.
Which we will see in a second that that's a possibility. He's like, I can never go back. Like he's just like, I can never go back. This is not how it's done. I'm like,
McNulty brought him back.
I was like, it was done 8 hours ago.
Right.
Exactly. Like,
You've done this twice in the past day.
Right.
So then he says he's stuck. He's like, I actually kind of, I don't want to go back. I actually kind of like it here. And so Deth and Helen Hunt kiss. Clearly they're going to try to, start some kind of relationship. And so they're kind of in like the throes of passion and yay, like things are going. And the last scene we see is McNulty's ancestor, the little girl, kind of peers away from the side, but kind of gives you maybe like almost the audience a nod. Just let this go. Like that's the sense I got. Like you could argue that maybe that's not the case, but my guess is mission accomplished. McNulty loves this dude. He's like, just let him live his life.
Right.
Like I don't know what's going on. And credits roll. Right then they freeze frame on the little girl. Credits roll, and that's all we got. I want to go back to the idea that there are 6 of these movies. We've only seen this one. And so Trancers 6 that came out in 2002, the premise is Trancer Hunter, Trancer Hunter Jack Deth travels through time and awakens in the body of his daughter. Now he must save himself and her. So the lead is not even in that, but apparently he's in the next 4. So it brings up to 5. Helen Hunt is in the sequel. That's all I know about this film. And
which sequel?
The part 2. Helen Hunt is in part 2. Wow. I don't think she's beyond it, but yeah. So I am totally willing to watch these sequels.
Yeah, they were fun. My only issue with this movie was really like if they just had someone go over the screenplay and just tidy it up like a little bit.
Exactly.
I think this would have been kind of a fun movie.
Well, there was some aspects of movies such as Terminator and Blade Runner, and even you mentioned James Bond earlier, Paul. But there was a lot of originality too. So that's I saw a lot of possibilities here, and I go back to what I said earlier. I think there was budgetary restrictions that if they had more money, they could have made a better movie.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, like I don't need my time travel movies to make too much sense.
Right.
I'm not really concerned about that.
But
like there were some just super glaring.
Exactly.
Yeah, that
exactly.
It just like someone if they had punched this up a little bit, I think we could have gone a lot further with it.
But I thought it was entertaining.
Yeah, I mean there wasn't really anything I can fault it for. Like I thought all the acting was pretty solid.
Yeah.
I mean the plot was kind of goofy, but it was fun.
I do like the lead. I almost, without seeing the other movies, I almost feel bad for him. I have to assume when we get to Trancers 5 that this guy's.
Oh, it's going to be a mess.
Yeah, this guy's life is probably like in shambles.
Yeah.
Like I'm just working paycheck to paycheck. They told me I'd be the next Arnold Schwarzenegger. They told me I'd be like, this was going to rival Back to the Future. Back to the Future comes out like the next year. Like this probably buried Trancers like every which way.
But he was old in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, not when I say old.
But just know, Trancers 5, which That Trancers 5 comes out in 1994. So this guy did this series of films for 10 years. And then 8 years later, we get Trancer 6, and he's not even in it. So that's...
Let me ask you guys a question.
Yeah.
Movies like this, where are they marketed? I mean, I never heard of these movies.
Well, not now. I think you're welcome to our podcast, and I don't disagree with you. Like this is kind of.
So my question is, who watched these movies when they were made? How did they get their money back? How did they make?
I think this is a super valid question. One of my guesses is we're in the early '80s, and I do feel this is when you get things like HBO really pumping out stuff like. My dad and I lived in different states with our family, and when we originally were in Chicago, we had access to HBO, and in other areas we didn't. Mike and I actually brought this up in a more recent film that we reviewed. It was Free Jack, where I was like, I watched this movie at a sleepover. We went to Blockbuster, we rented this.
That's
film.
what I'm
But
thinking.
Mike lived in Maine. And Mike's like, we didn't have that. Like, we had the local video store with 200 movies. I've never even heard of this, and that's why. I thought a podcast focusing on these movies that are like unsung, unheard of, obscure, etc., is interesting because these are the movies I would watch on sleepovers, or like TNT and USA used to have like Up All Night. They'd do these schlocky films, but had fun with it. Like they have hosts that's like, this is ridiculous, have fun, it's midnight. I'm like an early teen, so I'm allowed to stay up, and I'm not allowed to be out. So this is how I see these movies. But some of these Mike has seen, some of them he has not. Yeah, like who saw all these movies? I have no idea.
No one did. So I have a question for both of you. How old do you think Tim Thomerson is in this movie?
All right, so I'm gonna make a legitimate guess because Mike and I have done this before. I'm gonna guess he's 32 years old.
No, is that? Are you serious?
It's not that bad.
Okay.
Wait.
Yeah, well, Mike.
Yeah. What do you?
How old is he in this movie? In real life?
Yeah.
When it was filmed, like
when
we were seeing him, how old do you think he was in it?
Yeah.
So Helen Hunt again is. From what I looked up, my guess is
she's 20.
She's
to 20, yeah.
And then we saw it came out when she was 21.
I'm going to say 50.
Okay, he was born in 1946, so that would make him 38.
I'm not that far off.
Are you kidding me?
I said 32. I said 32.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, I'm not kidding you.
This guy
looks older than
this guy looks
anyone.
like,
This guy looks. I'm saying this. My father, Mike, and I have established what our ages are. We don't need to say my dad's age. This guy looks older than everyone in the room right now.
That is correct.
He looks like 10 miles of bad road.
Oh yeah, he does not.
I
look,
mean,
it's all those cigarettes that he's lighting on.
That's
Weird
right.
things.
Okay, we might get future cigarettes.
Future cigarettes, yeah, and they're not like the Fifth Element little
46?
ones. They're big ones. Yeah, 1946. So yeah, 38.
Oh, so he was like 37 when he filmed it?
37.
so I'm 12
yeah.
years old. I'm 12 years off.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Wow, I feel real good with my 32-year-old guess.
Maybe when you're a star in Hollywood, that hard living will take a toll.
It must, because I mean, he is younger than everyone in this room. Like,
Right, and he looks older than everyone in this
older
room.
than everyone
Much.
in this room. I much like yourself, I assumed he was like late 40s to 50s.
I would have assumed that, Dad, but we've gone through so many movies. We're like,
That's
we're
true,
like,
we have.
oh my god, that guy was 20. He looks like he's 45.
So I have another question for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a few of these movies that were very entertaining, certainly B movies, low tiered, and I found that in some of these movies there were high-end actors in them.
Like Helen Hunt.
Well, Helen Hunt was just starting her
Sure,
career.
yeah.
I'm talking about, maybe late in her career in these movies, and it's always surprising to see someone that I thought was a high-end, established actor, recognized in the business as such, in a schlock movie.
Yeah, like
sometimes
Lawrence of Arabia in Phantoms.
Oh my god, that was wasn't that like his last movie too? Didn't I
Yeah,
like
it
that?
was,
That
something like that,
That was
yeah.
such a shame. Sometimes I've read that these high tier actors, once you like win awards or like get to that upper echelon of acting, it's harder to get those jobs. And then you see people take these B-side roles just to pay their
Their
bills.
taxes,
Yeah,
yeah.
like I was in this movie and I won an Academy Award, but that was 10 years ago and no one wants me
Right.
because I said I wanted too much money, or I'm particular about scripts. I'm not even saying that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And then people are like, screw it. Like, we could just give people cheaper. We'll just make more money for ourselves.
Right.
And then you see these people do like these terrible roles. Now, I'm not saying anyone in this movie did a terrible role, but I totally agree with my dad that there are these movies that are like, what? like you're an award winner, and then you're like one step away from these cereal commercials.
You've got these low end actors around you, and you say, "What are you doing in this movie?" It is sad. It's evidently, obviously, a rough business.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, what's the future of the show, guys? What are you looking for? What are your expectations or hopes?
Our soon-to-be future, and as people are hearing this, we'll start doing Halloween episodes and then some Christmas episodes. We definitely, as Mike noted very early on when we started recording, seasonal movies are definitely our jam. I've said this to you for years. I mean, summer movies, Christmas movies, Halloween movies. This is my wheelhouse. I could watch these movies tons at a time. But I don't know, searching out some of these fun movies. I legitimately had fun watching this movie. I don't know if I'd be saying the same thing after Trancers 5. We'll see how that goes. But I actually have high hopes for the sequel. Like the immediate sequel, I think could be fun. Just more of these films. This is something Mike and I have done for, essentially almost decades just without recording. We get our friends involved. I think there's a lot of writing that has fallen through the cracks. I'm going to relate this.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I'm going to relate this in another way. The 80s are one of my favorite genres just in general, just, in film, kind of my upbringing as a kid. But I am still going back and discovering bands I've never even heard of from the 80s. Because there were so many, singles released, and everyone thinks of like the one-hit wonders of the 80s. But there's all these like notable bands doing things anywhere from rock to hip-hop, electronic, etc. But I feel the same thing with movies. I think maybe part of my anger, and not that I'm angry on this podcast, but my anger with the industry is, and Dad, we've talked about this for so long, Mike, we've talked about this for so long, there are very few original ideas in Hollywood. It's sequels and reboots and redone sequels, reboots. And some of these films going back, Dad, you even noted like there's a lot of merit and creativity in these films. Even if it comes off schlocky sometimes, it's still a lot of fun. There's still like a well of creativity that I'm like, that's cool. That's fun. Like, all right, why aren't people writing these movies? Instead, it's like, let's just do the X-Men for the 57th time with the same people.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought of it that way. But yeah, sometimes it's just fun to see a movie that like you haven't seen 45 times already.
Or the same story redone
again. Like over and over again. So it's time travel and it has parallels to other movies we've seen. But like this was a screenplay that was an original. It wasn't, as far as I know, based on a book.
Yeah, not that I know of.
It was just some weird story.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mike.
Yeah, and it was just
that's why I found it entertaining, because there was some originality.
That goes a long way for me.
Yeah. And Paul, you're absolutely right. Sequel after sequel, or remake after remake, come up with some new ideas.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and we watch a ton of these films, and some of them are weird, some of them are maybe things we won't, like movies we won't always examine, but I mean, we've learned a lot.
Let me ask you another question. Are you restricting your time frame to the 80s?
No.
So good, because I would be interested in knowing or seeing, or you guys reviewing and analyzing and critiquing movies from an earlier age. How about the 40s? How about the 30s? What different styles, different cultures, could be an opportunity to look at some of these old movies, the B movies,
right?
I'm just thinking about it now. It had the serials, Flash Gordon, stuff like that. Which was,
I gave you a shout out in one. I said I can't remember what episode I said I referenced something that was very Flash Gordon-esque, and I said I hope my dad hears this. He's a huge fan of Flash Gordon.
Yeah, I was, and look at Star Wars. They acknowledge that they actually stole a lot of that.
Borrowed.
Oh, excuse me. Borrowed, or a lot of those ideas.
Borrowed. Yeah,
creative. Borrowed a lot of that from Flash Gordon, and Flash Gordon was really cheesy. Mm-hmm. So when you got money poured into a movie like Lucas did, it turns out to be fantastic.
Also, I mean, it's weird for a modern film. If like a movie came out in this year, and it was cheesy, I'd be maybe a little irked. Like, I'll watch this. But going back and watching some of these dated films, because there's sometimes dated music, dated clothes, dated language, dated things. And a lot of these movies, I mean, this movie had a serious premise, but I don't feel this movie took itself seriously. And honestly, this is one of the reasons I love these movies. It's just way more fun just to watch it. That was just a fun hour and 16 minutes. And sometimes, I mean, to slam some of these Marvel movies, it's like 3 hours of like learning about a Marvel character, and I'm only half invested. And I'm like, you need to learn the lore. You also need to see 20 other Marvel films to really know the backstory of this character and the 4 other characters and how they overlapped. I was like, I just want to have a couple of drinks with my friends, have a good time. If I'm laughing at the movie, if I'm laughing with the movie, whatever it is, we never go in like thinking like this is crap and we're just going to talk shit about this movie. It's more, we'll talk about the cheesy stuff, but we go in with good intentions.
Definitely. I think, I think this is you guys are entertaining yourselves.
Sure.
It's like socializing and discussing a movie that you enjoyed. It wasn't. You guys don't come across as that you with the intention of tearing down a movie. You go with the intention of analyzing it, the value versus the parts that aren't so good, but it's the idea of trying to figure out what they were doing when they made this movie. And
so far, there's only one movie I just honestly didn't like very much. It was Sam Raimi's Crime Wave. I'm a huge fan of the director. It was an early piece of his work. We did this earlier on. We never saw it, so we didn't go in again like with like bad expectations. We're like, this is gonna be weird. I just genuinely didn't like it. I wouldn't watch it again.
Yeah, it was hard.
But a lot of these films, like so it's interesting. So some like Trancers, we didn't know anything. It was like, this looks fun. Let's watch it. Others were like, this is a weird film we haven't seen in 10 years. This would be great. Let's rewatch it. Right. But yeah, we've never gone in like, I'm going to make fun of the director. I'm going to make fun of the actors. I mean, if that's what happens, that's what happens. But we never went in with those intentions.
Yeah, I don't want to watch a movie that I know I'm going to dislike just for the sake of talking about it. There's always at least some anticipation that we're going to enjoy it. Yeah. But sometimes it doesn't work out like with Crime Wave.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just it's not fun for me to talk about things I don't like. It's fun to clown on things that are kind of fun.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, this isn't meant to be like a diss track.
Right, and I say that like, Dad, if you don't know who Sam Raimi is, he directed the new Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I watched that on an airplane today, and it sucks.
Yeah. He has his notable series is The Evil Dead with horror genres and other horror films, and I really like this director. And yeah, going back, I was disheartened that I didn't like it, and it was sad. But I was happy I saw one of his early films. But yeah, I mean, I would still watch that guy's films today. I mean, it was like one of his first things. Whatever. But yeah, I mean, I thought.
I think you guys again. I raised the idea of going back earlier, the 50s. There were some great B movies in the 50s and the 40s, and I think you could have a lot of fun with those. You might want to just kind of investigate a couple of those movies and see if it fits into this program.
Sure, I'm open for anything. Yeah. We will have to wrap it up as we have exceeded even the length of what the film was.
No.
Oh yeah.
This might be the first time that the pod has been longer than the movie.
Yeah, wow. It's definitely. But hey, how often is my dad here?
No, exactly. Yeah,
Dad. I think I'll say a couple of words and so we'll make it at the very end. But any last final thoughts on being on your very first podcast, Trancers, being in Colorado, anything that you want to say?
I enjoyed the whole experience. I would have liked to have watched the movie a second time before coming on the show. I was a little off on some of my recollections, or at least one in particular. I think this is a great idea. I think this is fun. I think people who enjoy movies should tune in. And provide comments to you to moving forward. I think this is a great idea. I hope you guys continue. It's obvious that you have fun doing this, and film is a great medium in many ways. It reflects the culture of our country and countries worldwide. Most people enjoy films of one type or another, and very often it's a reflection of our status in this country and what we think, and it's an important way, a means of expressing artistic viewpoints. So anyway, this was a great time. I enjoyed it. Next time I'm around, maybe you guys invite me back, and
Of course.
Trancers too.
Trancers too. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
So I wish
There's a movie I'll tell you off air that I really want to watch with you. Mike will know what it is in a second.
so good luck, and I wish you great success.
Well, I mean, I'm sure we'll have it next time you're on. We'll pick you up in the Rabbit Troop Sucks jet. I would.
Okay. All right.
Brought to you by Colorado government and funding. Please.
This was a lot of fun.
Sam's 3 could get us a jet.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
That great
Well,
chili.
thanks again, Dad, for being on this. For all of you
My
listening, we are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. You could email us at rabbittroopsuckspodcast@gmail.com. You could go directly to rabbittroopsucks.com. Let us know if there's any movies that you do want us to watch and review. As my dad said, let us know if there's any movies that inspired you to watch movies. If you have any questions for any of us, let us know. Denver, Colorado, it's always nice to transmit from you. We hope you're doing well. And as always, Rabbit Troop sucks.
It does.
Adios.